I got a good reason for the Dallas Cowboys to trade back in this year's draft, and I'll tell you exactly what it is here on Locked On NFL.
The barbershop is open and Tony Wiggins has a chair for you. He's ready with some real NFL talk. The local experts of Locked On bring their expertise, and Wiggy is ready with his clippers and shears. Sit down and enjoy. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
It's your team every day here on Locked On NFL. I'm Tony Wiggins, the host of Locked On NFL, and he is David Harrison from Locked On Commanders. Here's our rundown for today and what we're going to tell you about here. At the end of the show, we'll discuss the Bengals have a chance to do the right thing. That's right. Why the Rams have what I think is a no-brainer pick with the pick that they got in the draft from last year's trade. And now we're going to start with the Dallas Cowboys, though. Dallas should move back in round one. I have been a proponent this entire offseason, David Harrison, of people just identifying who they want and not playing the game. Just go and get them. But with Dallas, it's a little bit different because Dallas has a good offensive line. They have two good receivers. They have their quarterback. Therefore, what that tells me is that position of need is not at a high position of value, or position of need is at a place where they can actually move back and still get somebody good enough. So what I mean by that, Dave, is they shouldn't try to replace Micah Parsons with one or two people. With the draft capital they got, they need to move back and replace Micah Parsons with 4 or 5 people.
I mean, look, it's Micah Parsons is a rare type of player in the National Football League, which, go back to that trade that they made in the first place and the way that Jerry Jones really kind of butchered those negotiations and how you let a guy like that walk out of the building and then what subsequently happened with that Dallas Cowboys defense just, being, one of the worst in the NFL for the first season that they didn't have Micah. And now here they are, and we're all talking about how do they find the next Micah Parsons, right? Nobody's asking. Yeah. I mean, nobody's asking the Green Bay Packers, how do they find the next, Kenny Clark? Like, nobody's asking the Green Bay Packers, how do you possibly make up for losing that draft capital? Like, it's pretty clear here after 1 year which side of that, trade won that trade. And that's even included with Micah suffering a torn ACL, right? I mean, so that just kind of makes it even more solidified, the bad move that the Dallas Cowboys made. I think that if you see a guy like Reuben Bane, and I'm not the biggest Reuben Bane guy, to be quite honest with you, but like if Reuben Bane or David Bailey is sitting there somehow at number 12, then I think you pull the trigger. I think you do that. But if it's not one of those guys, I don't think you go after the 4th best edge rusher at the 12th overall pick. I think you do see if you can negotiate a trade down. The question there really is who's going to be the buyer, right? And who are they looking to come up for? Because number 12 is kind of right at the edge of that next layer of talent. You got like your blue chippers, which I think to me, there's only like 3 of those guys, but to some there's as many as 5, which is still not very many. And then you got that second layer of talent, which, depending on who you talk to, there's 6 or 7 guys in that layer of talent, right? So that's kind of right on the edge of the Dallas Cowboys. And if you're sitting there at the edge of the near edge of the 3rd level of talent, if you're the Cowboys, you're much better off trading back to the middle part of that 3rd level of talent, or even the back end of that 3rd level of talent, gaining more picks, and then hoping someone wants to jump up for someone early in that grouping. Maybe they think they're part of that 2nd level of talent. So again, it's all, eye of the beholder type of stuff. But yeah, the Dallas Cowboys have a team like, say, maybe the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who might be willing to move up and try to get somebody that they think is really good, trade back a few spots, get another pick somewhere, and move forward. I think that would be the best path for them for sure.
It will be. And they think it's the path for other people, which means that the guys from Locked On Dallas believes that they have a chance to come up. I'm going to listen to them, and then when we get back, we're going to pull some layers off of this. And I'm going to give you some scenarios as to why I think Dallas is better served hitting this with numbers than hitting it with trying to find that one great player.
All these teams that we're going to talk about, they all have kind of needs that don't necessarily line up with their draft position, right? So that would be a motivating factor for them wanting to trade down a little bit just to try to get value on the player that they're trying to target, right? So,
and I could also see, I could also see a situation where like they really like Reuben Bane. Yeah. Maybe they feel like 4 is a little rich, but hey, if he's there at 12, that's a much more attainable spot to get up.
Yeah, exactly. So I think for a team like Tennessee, like, maybe trying to kind of add around Cam Ward a little bit. If you threw them your 12 and your 20, they would probably have to throw a day 2 pick back at you of some sort. It's probably in the 3rd round.
Yeah, I like what they're talking because that's good draft talk. But here's the problem that I have with it. If you're Dallas, you still have to target a player. You still have to say, okay, this is my guy, especially in the 1st round. You know, whatever we do, we end up with this dude. Because one of the things, and this isn't on Marcus, but one of the things that kind of is it almost is like somebody scratching the chalkboard for me, is when people say, we want him, but 4 is rich and 12 is more rational. If you want him, go get him. Nobody's going to care where he was picked if he can play. And then we forget about the scheme specificity of this. Some guys, if they're tailor-made for your system, they're going to get in your system and they're going to end up being an all-pro if you win, right? So nobody is going to care at all. They're going to worry about the production. Now, I say that, and I live in a city where everyone says Trayvon Walker wasn't worth the number 1 pick, but he's a really good player. You're either a bust or you're not. Mm-hmm. And if you get the guy that fits your culture, you get the guy that fits your culture. If you move back, if you're Dallas, because there's no bigger difference, you're able to get Christian Parker more secondary players because that system is really designed for secondary players. Just look in Philly for secondary players and edge rushers to really get after it. But they kind of come at you in numbers. Even in Philadelphia, they always got 3 different edge rushers. They always have multiple ways of lining up. They always have scheme versatility with Cooper DeJean moving in and moving out and all of these things. I really believe that you have to hit it in numbers because you're not going to replace Micah Parsons with 1 or 2 people.
Yeah, no, I think so. I think you're correct there. And what I would say is if you're sitting at number 12 and you think that trading up to number 4 is a little rich to get a guy that you really like, the fact that you think it's just a little bit too much to pay a number 4, I don't know why you have the confidence that he's going to fall 8 more spots to you.
That's my point.
Number 12, right?
Other people are smart too.
Right. Yeah, 100%. And look, I know I saw a recent 5-round mock draft where, teams, where the site said, hey, Micah Parsons fell to the Cowboys at number 12 back when he came out of the NFL draft. So why not Sonny Styles do the same thing? Well, there's some stark differences between Micah Parsons and Sonny Styles, and I don't want to turn this into a pseudo episode of Locked On NFL Draft. But let's just say that some of the question marks and baggage that Micah Parsons had following him out of Penn State, Sonny Styles does not have any of that stuff to worry a team. So if you think Sonny Styles is getting out of the top 10, I would be very, very surprised to see that. So here are the Dallas Cowboys, man, whether it's David Bailey, whether it's Sonny Styles, whether it's Caleb Downs. And again, like not all these guys help replace, Micah Parsons directly, but if you have somebody who can be versatile, if you have a defensive player that can be versatile on your team, it can certainly help set up other things for your defense and make some of those other players that you're going to bring in later to try to replace them better. Then I think, like you said, if you want somebody, go up and get them. I think number 6, honestly, for the Dallas Cowboys, I think number 6 is the spot to look out for. The Cleveland Browns, I think they're going to be in a prime situation where they're probably going to like a lot of guys that are left on the board at number 6, but I don't know that they're going to love any of them, and none of them are going to make them immediate contenders. And so they'll be a team that are on the lookout for trying to move back. But if the Cleveland Browns are smart, which historically they're not, but if they're smart this year, they're not going to want just, picks this year. I think they're going to want 2027 picks. So you're going to have the Dallas Cowboys trying to move up from 12 to 6. And then the Cleveland Browns are going to say, okay, but we'll swap 12 and 6. But outside of 12, we don't want nothing you got in 2026. We want stuff that you got in 2027 in what's supposed to be a much better draft class. So the question then is, Jerry Jones going to fork over 2027 draft capital in what everybody knows is supposed to be a better class to the Cleveland Browns in order to move up and get him. But again, like you said, if you love David Bailey, if you love Reuben Bane Jr., if you love Caleb Downs or Sonny Styles or any of these guys that are on the board number 6, go get them. Like, why sit back and wait? Absolutely go get them. I've been having the same conversation on Locked On Commanders this week. Not that it's my favorite approach to it per se, but if you absolutely love a guy and you don't think he's going to reach you at number 7 for the Commanders, number 12 for the Cowboys, or whatever number team you're sitting at, go get him. Don't wait for fate to find you. Go make your own.
Go make your own. So if Dallas moves back from 12, and let's just say they get around 18, if they get anywhere close, to 18. Let me tell you what they could end up doing. They could get a second-round pick that they don't have right now. With their 2 late first-round picks, if they get Akeem Mesidor, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they take a flyer on Jacob Rodriguez, and then they get that second-round pick because of the move down, and they take Chris Johnson, a corner out of from out west. What did they miss? And
I would hate that because I cover the Commanders, and that's a very good draft haul for the Cowboys.
There you go. So more might be more in this situation. The more bites that you get at the apple to replace a great player, the more you need to take. We'll talk about that and more. We got to get to the Rams, man. To me, the Rams have a no-brainer pick right now with their pick that they acquired in the draft last year, their first-round pick. We'll discuss that and more here in a second on Locked On NFL. All right, today's show is brought to you and sponsored by BetterHelp. Financial stress is something a lot of people are carrying right now, man. And it's not just about numbers. It can affect your sleep, your relationships, and your overall mental health in ways that build up over time. And the reality is struggling with money doesn't mean you failed. Sometimes it just means you haven't had the right kind of support. It's something I've thought about, and I've actually lived through it. I've had money. I've made decent money, but the prospect of continuing to do that along with some health challenges I have really did cause me to go into a state of depression where I had to go and seek therapy for better health. And it's easy to put a lot of pressure on yourself without really talking about it. That lack of sleep is something else, man, and sleep deprivation can really get to you. Therapy isn't about financial advice. It's about working through the stress, the anxiety, and emotions that come with it. With over 30,000 licensed therapists and more than 6 million people served, BetterHelp makes it easier to get matched and start focusing on what you need. When the life starts feeling overwhelming, therapy can help, man. Sign up and get 10% off at betterhelp.com/lockedon. That's better, HELP.com/lockedon. Getting down the road here in the barbershop on Locked On NFL. Make sure you tap down in the Everydayers Club link that is below the show, whether you watch or listen, even Locked On Commanders, Locked On Jaguars, and Locked On NFL. You can do multiple. Make sure you tap into the Everydayers Club. You get access to merchandise and things that are specific to those particular teams. You get to hear David and see David in action on Locked On Commanders a lot more. And me this summer, I'll be there. So make sure you get down there, man, because you can get access to our merchandise and ad-free shows that go out to our audio partners as a member of the Everydayers Club. Speaking of every day, it seemed like it was every day we were hearing something about Puka Nacua and the Rams. And the Rams are already in the market for a wide receiver with them trying to make a move to get A.J. Brown. There was talk about them possibly trading Devontae Adams. And then Puka Nacua enters rehab and has a whole bunch of stuff attached to his name. So even without the Puka madness, the Rams are already looking to tinker a little bit with their receiving core. And this dude that played right there in Los Angeles that I think is a no-brainer for them because of the style of play, because of what they're looking for, and that's Makai Lemon. Here's the guys from Locked On Rams to tell you all about it.
It does look like if the Rams are going to go receiver, that Jordan Tyson, at least right now, doesn't seem like it would make the most sense just because he has dealt with some injury stuff. And we need whoever the Rams to draft to be able to be all gas, no brakes in year one. And I just don't like the idea of young receivers dealing with injuries this early in their career, especially ones that you could look at as, hey, do we need to get him on our building and get him into our training methods? I think Makai Lemon makes a lot more sense. And we did our first Locked On Rams mock draft today. And at 13, I did select Makai Lemon. He was available.
I think he's perfect for what they do. Although Jordan Tyson, to me, has more upside, those injuries do concern you a little bit. But Makai Lemon looks like, this is what I was talking about matching the guy with your system. Nobody will care where he was picked if he's the right person. And I think he really does fit with what they want to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think Makai Lemon to the Rams makes a lot of sense. The only question I would have is how does he work in concert with Puka Nacua, right? Like, because of both of those guys, you know, they have the ability to work downfield for sure, but they also both do a lot of damage in the short to intermediate part of the field, right? Makai Lemon is not necessarily a burner. He's not really a stretch the field type of guy. Is his comp has been Amon-Ra St. Brown, and if you know anything about Amon-Ra St. Brown, he's not a burner, right? He works better at getting, he's a route technician. He gets separation by manipulating the defense, doing things like that. But it's a lot of the same situations that I've seen Puka Nacua, or not the same situation, but the same field area. So I just kind of wonder if the Rams will get too clogged up in the short to intermediate part of the field. But again, Sean McVay, I mean, if there's an offensive mind in the NFL today that can make them both work together, it's Sean McVay. And still, even if you have kind of a congregation of guys in that short to intermediate part of the field, you still got to defend them if you're an NFL defense, and you got Devontae Adams out there with the size. I think that's where the Jordan Tyson comparison to the Rams, or fit with the Rams, gets most talked about. Is, Devontae, as good as he is, and I still think he's one of the best receivers in the NFL, obviously he's getting up there. He can't be a long-term solution for the Rams as a running mate with Puka Nacua. So finding that next guy is not going to be A.J. Brown. Jordan Tyson, physically, like, he fits the profile of a running mate for Puka Nacua. So again, I like the fit. I mean, I think it's a very clear fit. I just wonder, beyond the fit, you looking into the play chemistry with a guy like Puka Nacua, does that mean you're going to take away a little bit of some of Puka's dynamic ability in that short and intermediate part of the field to make room for Makai Lemon? And how does that impact Puka's overall impact? So again, it's just the balancing of the talents. But at the end of the day, the Rams are going to have really good talent if they go either way, Makai Lemon or Jordan Tyson.
The thing that I have to warn myself about is typecasting Puka or Makai Lemon as only a slot guy, because a lot of people did that with Jackson Smith and Jigbo, and now he's like an apex wide receiver in the National Football League. So we got to, sometimes they have a projection. No, just because he didn't do it doesn't mean they can't. Remember, they had a bunch of receivers at USC. They even had Deuce Robinson at some point, who ended up going to Florida State and getting 1,000 yards. It was almost like Jameson Williams when he was at Ohio State. It was just, you thought he couldn't play. He was the fourth guy out of like 6 people. And then he goes to Alabama. He leads the whole country in receiving yards. And he's a very good player as well. The Giants think they're going to get a lot better. But John Harbaugh kind of jokingly said that everybody's tradable. Of course, we've heard the Dexter Lawrence news, and people are anticipating that there may be some smoke with Kayvon Thibodeau. Here's Patricia Traynor, though, talking about how they've gotten better just by adding different coaches.
The Giants, why should we believe that they are closer to competing? We can start with the coaching staff. All right. You have heard me say on this program, if you are an everydayer, that coaching matters. And the proof the last few years has kind of been in the pudding, in that you look at the number of Giant players who have either been slow to develop or who have regressed. And you sit there and you say, what exactly are these guys being taught? How are they being developed? You look at guys who were with the Giants who went to other teams and became really solid players. And you sit there and you say, what is going on with the coaching and the development?
Yeah, so I've been a big critic of the GM, Joe Schoen. And this may not be a Brian Daboll coaching issue, although obviously John Harbaugh is very, very, accomplished with the Super Bowl and the consistency they had in Baltimore. This may be somebody else went and got the groceries and I got to make this thing fit. I think there was a problem with alignment, and I wonder if that problem is still going to exist with Joe Schoen and John Harbaugh.
I mean, that's up to the Maros, right? Really, the power dynamic boils down to the
ownership. And it's going to exist.
Where they put things,
then it's going to exist.
Yeah. I think you bring in Harbaugh, you understand that Harbaugh is running the show. And if you're Joe Schoen, you understand that you either get on Harbaugh's page or you're going to find yourself, looking for a new job. So to me, I think that's a little bit of a different situation. I think Daboll probably should have had a little bit more of that type of control than maybe he had. I was surprised they kept Joe Schoen, to be quite honest with you, in the first place. But, that's what teams do sometimes. They surprise you with the decisions that they make. I think the Giants are trending up. I do think coaching, like Patricia says, I say it a lot on my own show, coaching absolutely matters. But really, it's not even like from a developmental standpoint, it's not even so much on the head coach. Like the head coach is the executive of the coaching staff, right? Like you don't expect the CEO to come down to the mail room and teach the mail clerk how to be the, the new stud, salesperson or whatever it is you're building. is trying to do, right? That's on the position coaches, the assistant position coaches, and the coordinators. And, you know, don't be wrong, like the head coach is responsible for it and absolutely has to have that oversight and understand when the right people are in the right positions. But from a functional standpoint, day to day, that's where you got to look. And if you don't have the right coaches in those positions, that's where you're going to run into problems. So I think that, you know, we'll see what happens with the New York Giants. It's always telling when you have a team that struggles and then your players go somewhere else and succeed. That's always telling. I've covered a team where, you know, fortunately or unfortunately, most of the players that have left from the previous regime have gone other places and basically been what they were here, just there. And maybe they have more success because they're on a better team. But as an individual player, none of them have really like exploded off the scene. So it just kind of shows you that holistically there was a bad operation. I think the New York Giants can look at it and say, well, look, maybe the groceries were better. You just didn't know how to cook them. And again, why that falls on Brian Daboll as a head coach, as the responsible executive for the staff. I think Harbaugh, what he does better is he gets guys in the building who understand it, know how to teach it, and do it well. And that's why Harbaugh gets all the praise, even though he's not the one on the ground teaching these guys how to do their jobs.
Coaches are macro guys. Good leaders are always macro. Both of us are veterans, and we know that. Your commander makes a lot of difference. The dude that demands respect never gets it. The dude that commands respect because of what he will and will not tolerate. He can be as quiet as a mouse, and no one will do anything out of order. So that's what leadership is, and that's what you just described. Leadership isn't necessarily something that we talk about with Cleveland and Cincinnati, the Browns and the Bengals. In fact, it's to the contrary. They both have a chance to do something really, really good in this draft. What is that? I'll tell you in just a second here on Locked On NFL. Everyone has the Cincinnati Bengals taking defense in this year's draft at the number 10 spot. I think along with Washington, the floodgates are open as to what they could do. There's like a number of things. I don't think Washington's going to edge rusher because they do have Dorrance Armstrong. I ain't going to sit here and tell you about the team you cover. Dorrance Armstrong's coming back from injury, and they signed 2 guys in free agency. So it would kind of be counterintuitive for them to just go after an edge rusher, even though they didn't pay Caleb Vaughn a whole bunch of money, I believe. But it's still, they have other needs, right? Cleveland is that way because they're bad. The other team is that's that way at Cincinnati, and it's all defense, but they got a chance to do something. They did improve on their offensive line a little bit, and some of their drafted guys did come around. But there's this guard up in Penn State, his name is Vega. I believe it's Vega. How you say it? Ioane. There you go. He's clearly the best interior offensive lineman. They got a chance to do something and not take defense and use their day 2 picks on defensive backs and linebackers. Now, I know asking the Bengals to scout properly is not good. They got a chance to fix that line once and for all because the bottom line with Joe Burrow is availability. You got to be able to keep him upright, and you got to be able to move people. But that's not what they're going to talk about here. They're going to talk about an edge rusher here with my man James Rapine. Check this out.
This is one of the best case scenarios you can have. And the Bengals would certainly feel this way as well. I would be stunned if in this scenario they did not take David Bailey and dance, pound the chair, dap each other up, jump up and down. You might see Zach Taylor do a box jump onto the draft table if you could get David Bailey at 10. And look, I don't think that he's this flawless prospect, but I don't think you care at 10. I think you look at this and you're like, all right, well, he's going to give you juice.
Dave, I get it. They need defense. They need to get the ball back. They're awful, but you don't necessarily have to do everything in the first round. You draft that best guard, that no-brainer, and you stick him at left guard and then take the other dude and make him compete with the right guard. Now, all of a sudden, you're controlling the ball more, and you know you can score whenever you want. Teams will be pressed to not give you back the ball. Instead of trying to score 39 points a game, score 29 points a game and control the clock and use situational football to help you win games.
Well, I mean, not even just Joe Burrow, but Chase Brown, right? Like having that better guard in there, that interior offensive lineman helps block up those run lanes better, and it helps Chase Brown become more effective. And I know the Cincinnati Bengals have spent a lot of money on their wide receiver core and obviously on their quarterback and all that stuff, and it's a passing league. But when you have a poor defense, which the Cincinnati Bengals have and will have, even if they draft David Bailey, like they're still going to have a bad defense, at least for this year.
Yep.
The best thing you can do for your defense is shorten the game, bleed that clock, turn, I think most NFL games average between like 11 to 13, maybe 14 possessions per side, depending on how much they're clicking. But if you're the Cincinnati Bengals, man, if you can trim that thing to 10 possessions each side, like that just gives your defense a better opportunity to come up with a play here and there to keep the score on the other side low enough so that your offense can go out there and do their thing. This class is rich with tight ends. I think the Cincinnati Bengals need to go out there and attack the tight end position, get a young guy in that room along with who they have already to start trying to grow and maybe even find a guy that you can use. And there's defensive players, there's guys that are going to be available on day 2, day 3 that you can certainly bring in as well. So I think David Bailey is hard to pass up, to be honest with you. Like I agree with James Rapine. If David Bailey is in there at 10, like, that's a little bit rough. And I think that what you can try to do is, again, like if David Bailey's sitting there at 10, or the Cowboys going to call from 12 to jump up to 10, you move back to 12, then you get Wyoming, I just messed it up myself. Then you get your guard, but you also get a little bit of capital, right? Versus taking him maybe at number 10, you let the Cowboys come get him. The Dolphins probably are not going to go interior offensive lineman. They're probably going to go, I don't know, receiver or something like that. Malik Willis is going to need some help out there. So, I think it's interesting to see what they do at 10, obviously, and how the board falls. Every simulation is different, and every simulation has accuracies and fallacies. But David Bailey, there's talk of David Bailey going number 2 overall. I would be very surprised, and I think James said that as well, if David Bailey, who could go number 2, did not go number 2, but then also is still sitting there at number 10. That would be very interesting to me. I think the Cowboys, are one of those teams, not to just harp on Dallas, but if you see David Bailey sliding again, number 6, the Cleveland Browns, like jump up there and get him. But even if the Commanders won't trade back with you, the Saints at number 8, maybe they want to move back a little bit, right? Even the Kansas City Chiefs, like I can see them taking David Bailey. But if not, those edge rushers, man, they go. You're jumping back into the top 10. You're going to pay a tax there. So like people are going to be looking to take advantage of one of these teams, looking to jump into the top 10 for an edge, whether it be Reuben Bane, whether it be David Bailey,
right,
or anybody else. So it's interesting, but I see both sides of the coin. But to your point, I think that you help your defense by making your offense capable of bleeding the clock more than anything else.
You had Trey Hendrickson forever, and he's so good. He got a 4-year, $122 million contract with Baltimore. What changes if you get David Bailey? You just drafted an edge rusher last year. You're going to be the same team you've been for the last 4 years. So David Bailey may be a better player than the guard, but the guard may change your team to the point where
there's a bigger impact on your overall process.
That's right. And you grab Makai Lemon in the second round, and you never know. Maybe he turns out to be a very, very good player. All right. Cleveland, let's stay right there in the state of Ohio. They can't do this. There's no way at 6 they can do what my man Spencer suggests that they might be trying to run and hide away from. Listen to this and feel the love.
Why would they take Jeremiah Love? And here's the thing. Jeremiah Love is going to be a fantastic player at the next level in my estimation. He's one of the only players in this group, this class, that's considered a blue chipper. Most experts and analysts have him top 2 in terms of where he sort of falls in terms of the player that he is, the caliber that he brings to the table. He's fantastic. And so if the Browns took him, I would understand it from that standpoint because he is that good of a player. If it was me, I think Jeremiah Love falling feels like it should be a perfect opportunity to trade back, because somebody will talk themselves into, Jeremiah Love and the talent that he brings to the table in our offense, I love the idea of that. Let's go up and get him. I think that could happen.
This is where I would go. I would do the same thing with Dallas. I move back and go more. They got 2 running backs in the draft last year that contrast each other's style, and they complement each other very, very well with Dylan Sampson as well as Quinshon Judkins. It's like you get fire and ice. You get thunder and lightning with that. And they're day 2 and day 3 picks. So that means that you're not paying them a whole bunch. Cleveland needs too much to be taking Jeremiah Love, in my opinion. And so I'm with Spencer. They need to get out of there.
Yeah. You need to sell him to somebody that wants him, that can use him. Look, the Chiefs just got Kenneth Walker listen, people don't seem to remember Kenneth Walker was not a third down back in Seattle, right? Like he wasn't a pass catcher, he wasn't a pass blocker, doing all those things. So could the Kansas City Chiefs want to pair Jeremiah Love with Kenneth Walker?
That'd be rich, man.
You know, and again, take some pressure off of Patrick Mahomes, take some pressure off that defense, do those types of things. I think that could be a really interesting move. And if you're the Chiefs sitting at 9, you know, and you want to maybe jump, look, I've long thought that the Saints and Jeremiah Love could make a lot of sense. You know, they did a lot of damage with Alvin Kamara. Jeremiah Love can catch, you know, not, I don't want to say just like Alvin Kamara can, but he can catch. But he can also do a lot of damage on the ground. You pair him with that running back they just got from Jacksonville. Sorry, Wig. But I think that's I think that would be a good pairing there. And Alvin Kamara is kind of nearing the end of his effectiveness. You know what I mean? So just some interesting options there. And of course, there's a lot of people in Washington who would love to see the Commanders take Jeremiah Love at number 7. So 7, 8, and 9. I've seen a mock where the Bengals took him at 10. Like, so there's a lot of teams. If Cleveland, yeah. If you're Cleveland, there's a lot of teams that Jeremiah Love makes sense for. And if you get on the phone at number 6, you start, you know, group calling all these guys and say, hey, listen, who wants Jeremiah Love? Come pay for him. Again, I just think the Cleveland Browns, man, like unless Arvell Reese falls to number 6, which I don't see happening, like unless Arvell Reese falls to number 6, man, just trade that pick. I think you're going to have calls. Adam Peters, the GM of the Washington Commanders, he doesn't think there's going to be a lot of trades in this year's draft. And I'm, you know, far be it for me to tell Adam Peters he's wrong. But that doesn't mean there's not going to be any trades. And like I said, I've thought about this for about the last month. Number 6, Cleveland Browns. It just makes the most sense. Like that is, of all the picks leading up to this point, Tennessee at number 4, Cleveland at number 6. Those 2 spots make the most sense. Even Arizona at number 3, I think makes a lot of sense as well. But those 2 spots, 4 and 6, make the most sense for teams to trade out and for another team to trade up.
All right, let me tell you before we skedaddle on out of here, the team that I think is perfect for Jeremiah Love, and I think they have the necessary capital that Cleveland can still get what they want. I call the Chicago Bears. The Bears have 25, 57, and 60. Give me all 3 of them. Give me those 3 picks, and you can come up and get him. That's what I do. And he played at Notre Dame, and it takes the heat off of their great quarterback and what looks like
good quarterback,
very good receiver and corner. Yeah. So, but you know what I mean. But he would be great if you add this, and there's value because Ben Johnson knows the value of game-breaking running back. That is the spot. Homegrown. Well, I don't know where he's from, but he played at Notre Dame. They know him. He fits the monsters of the Midway. He adds some. He adds 25 touch capability to an offense that is already looking like it's trending up. So that's my choice for him. And then Cleveland,
that's a great fit.
And they could come back, and Cleveland could come back and still start fortifying the rest of their team, and maybe even take a swing then at Ty Simpson as the future quarterback. We never know. We never know how it's going to work, Dave. But what we do know is Locked On NFL is here for you each and every day, just like Locked On Commanders and Locked On Jaguars, and all of them are part of the Everydayers Club. You can subscribe for as little as $5 to get ad-free shows that go out to our audio partners, as well as access to our merchandise and access to us. That's me and Dave, but we're going to skedaddle, man, and go get about our business and start doing the rest of the work that is required here in the National Football League. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you later.